Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is having a really beautiful start to your day, the afternoon. Hope you're having a great day. It's like, wait, it's kind of beyond the start.
Whatever you're doing, hope it's a good one.
Yeah, exactly.
Good time zone, everyone.
Yeah, good day. It's my favorite thing to say. I'm like, why doesn't everybody say good day instead? I was saying good morning to this woman in the store the other day. It was 11:59 a.m. And so then I was like, good morning. I mean afternoon. And she's like, oh, it's still morning. I'm like, is it though? I don't I guess it depends on how early you woke up.
I just hate it as a cashier when people would give you attitude for being slightly off. Like, I'm sorry, I got here at 5 a.m. and
Exactly.
2 hours from when I get to leave, so it is just almost freedom time.
It's the
I'm
end of my
counting the
day.
clock like I am currently imprisoned.
Yeah.
Like,
Good day is what we say. We'll stick to that. So, good day, everyone. If you are here, let us know that you're here. Pop a comment in and say hello. Tell us where you're joining from. And today's question of the day is, what do you think is a receptionist's most important job? What do you think is the receptionist's most important job? We are deep in our series supporting the front end of the revenue cycle. And so if you are brand new here and you're not even sure what we're talking about, we are talking about the business of healthcare. That's what we do in this space. Our focus is on helping alleviate the stress and confusion in the business of healthcare. I am Jasmine Veles, and
I'm Nicole.
I don't know if I went the right direction. That way.
I know, it
That
flips
way.
it. This is what's going to happen for trivia, too, where I inevitably gesture in the wrong direction.
Like I test myself too. I'm like, I think it's this. Hope it's this way. Yeah, yeah. I do. I was inevitably do the opposite, right? Yeah. So today we are continuing. It's a third part. I'm sorry. This is the third part to a series. Not technically required that you have watched the first two, but we would totally suggest that you go back and watch them if you have not caught them, because there's some really great content in there, especially if you're someone who is breaking into the field of healthcare or just really want to understand a little bit more about what takes place in the area of receptionists. So in this space, we talk a lot around the revenue cycle, which is basically the way that money moves through a healthcare organization. And the first person, the said gatekeeper of the practice, is our receptionist, the people who greet our patients, who make sure that the patient information is where it needs to be. And so we like to talk a lot about reception because I think that it's really important. I mean, if it's the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, right? It's like that's where it starts. That's where people are gathering the data that we need on the back end of the revenue cycle to make sure that the money moves smoothly. And so it's really important that we support the front end. So we're glad that you're here. Nicole, did you want to say something about our series that we've been diving into? You want to talk about the other two, maybe?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So, like Jasmine said, this is part 3. We aren't necessarily required, but over in part 1, we talked about finding a job as a medical office receptionist. All sorts of things, phone skills, and some other things that we talked about actually in the previous series Jasmine and I had about kind of more general job search things. Helpful, obviously, for medical billers, but also for people generally looking for a job. So the first one was a little bit more about, is this the right job for you? Is this the best way for you to enter into healthcare? While the second portion was a little bit more about getting the job specifically. So we talked about, again, some of our more general things, resume, cover letters. We learned what is a CV and why it's not a resume, and all sorts of other fun things. And then today, we are more specifically assuming that you've gotten your offer, you've accepted it, you are going to be a medical office receptionist. But what now?
What is expected of you on the job, and how can we help you not just kind of check the boxes for the basic stuff, but also thinking of some of the out of the box thinking of things that can really help you feel confident and communicate that confidence to your employers, which is what we desire, right? For them to see you as doing a great job and hopefully put you on that list of for a raise, for a promotion, or whatever your goals might be in healthcare. So yeah, today's going to be exciting.
So I wanted to ask you, Jasmine, what do you think is a receptionist's most important job, task. We were playing with the wording of this. Neither of us like the question, but it's a good question, bad wording.
Exactly. Not our favorite wording. But, yeah, you know, my answer is always going to be customer service and how we care for, treat, welcome the patient. If you guys have hung around here long enough, you know that I'm a little cheesy when it comes to being like pretty heart forward. So, you know, for me, the whole purpose of what we do here is to support the heart of healthcare, which is our patient care and how that's delivered. And the receptionist has the opportunity to be welcoming and caring, and also the other side of that spectrum, unwelcoming and absolutely awful. And so it changes the entire energy of the practice. It changes I believe the journey for even the patient experience being a pleasant one. Totally changes the way that the practice operates, I think, as a whole, because the way the relationship starts with the patient can impact how they move to the back office, and that can impact how they interact with the providers, might even impact the decisions that they make in the practice, right? So customer service is my thought. What about yours?
Yeah, that was a great one. As I think we've talked about in every other portion of this series, I did work for almost a year in the front end of a veterinary office, which is very similar and extremely different in the same breath. So obviously, I definitely agree that the fact that you're kind of the first point of contact and the director almost of the experience is super important. I do feel like the custodial parts, though, are like equally as important because no one else thinks about it. But usually, if you're reception, you're in charge of like cleaning the drink areas and the waiting areas and, you know, making sure the trash gets picked up. It's amazing how quickly things get out of hand. If like it's a little busy and you can't do your tidying tasks. Ooh, don't recommend.
Yeah, that's such a really a great point. I would totally agree with you that as it relates to just being the guardian of the patient experience and how they feel welcomed or how they feel comfortable in this, you know, in their very first time walking into your doors, it's a huge part of it, right? It's a part of we'll talk a little bit about today, but it's totally a part of that patient experience being a positive one. So we're all about, like, in this season, and if you guys have been to newer medical practices, I feel like the mode of medical practices has shifted, and I think it's a good thing, where they're more oriented towards kind of like a cafe style. You know, it's like, come in, we've got comfortable seating, we've got water, we have coffee, and there might even be snacks. Like, there's kind of this like, come in, stay a little while, you know, feeling, versus like back in the day, there were like gray, awful chairs they were, you know, metal legs. And if there was a table, it was a crappy table that had old magazines on it that were just kind of strung. And there might have been pictures in there, or it's just white walls with random signs that are like, taped to the wall in a very barbaric way. And so I am grateful for the shift, and I would have to say in the newer practices, because there's still a lot of older practices with the same aesthetic.
For sure. Yeah. Because my vet place that I worked at had two locations, one way older that existed, like they bought it from someone, and then the other one they kind of, you know, remodeled and everything, so it's a swanky place uptown. And oh yeah, the difference in quality is like, we got some Coke in the fridge if that works for you, versus here below our neon sign is our cold brew and our hard seltzer. You're like, whoa, big difference. Way different experience.
Hard seltzer. I love this. You know, I have some very recent experience in this whole conversation, and it just hit me as this is evolving at the beginning of our conversation. So before we continue down our perspectives, let's say hello to some of the folks that have put some comments there.
Very patiently putting up with our
yeah, Blue Butterfly is back. Hello, good day. I like that you've already picked it up, right? Good day.
I feel like we should have hats. We should be
good day. Yes. And Tyra, I have not seen you in a while, friend. It's so great to see you. Thanks for
this is what happens when we get kicked off Facebook. We miss all our Facebook people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot we're back on there today. So I'm excited to see some of you guys that we haven't seen in a while. We were having issues with our Facebook connection to this app, and it's restored. Evidence. because Tyra's here. So yeah, we're excited for that. So thank you for being here. And yeah, when you guys get here, if you're just joining, say hello, put a comment in, let us know that you are there. And what do you think is the most important job as a receptionist? So Nicole, do you want to kick us off with our first talking point today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about, your expectations, the responsibilities that you'll be in charge of. Oh, hi, Todd. Sorry, while we're still getting into it. Hi. I like calling Thursday Friday Eve. I like
love
that
Friday Eve.
immensely. That's great.
Yeah. Friday Eve is definitely way more like it just gets you excited.
For sure. Definitely a better. But yes, expectations, responsibilities. We have to talk about what it is you'll be doing. And there's a lot of things to talk about. We talked about having to blah, blah, blah. We talked about how you need phone skills to get the job. And shockingly, you will need them on the job as well. So you'll be doing mostly, primarily, probably phone conversations. Aside from when people come in to pick things up, if you're in office on location, if you're remote, you may have a little bit more email interaction than personal. But phone skills are still absolutely the biggest point of contact, I'd say. Whether it's calling about appointments, picking up medications, all the fun things that we love so much. And beyond that, there is a lot of you can look up a lot of advice. You can find a lot of courses, including ours, that will help you with your phone skills. But one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give, I don't know, Jasmine has a bigger one, is I'm sure that we're all familiar with phone voice or customer service voice, which is when you put on a new personality when you're kind of on the job. You kind of need a phone face, and it sounds silly, and it kind of doesn't make sense, but it works. Where we're on camera right now. Obviously, I'm having a great time. I'm smiling with you guys. But if this was audio only, there's a high likelihood that I could be just here, in my room alone, neutral faced, and the tone changes. So when you're smiling, you can hear the difference, and you're a lot more approachable and generally. I forgot the word because I saw the message pop up giving good phone, and that fully took over my brain.
That's actually really funny. I like that. It's so real.
I saw Jasmine watch my brain go blank.
I processed it too. I was like, oh yeah, that's so real. I mean, we hadn't talked specifically about this, but this is actually one of in the course that we spend a little bit of time talking about the importance of a smile and the power of a smile, from kind of all angles, but it totally translates. Like if I were to just sit here and talk to you guys and my face just like doesn't have any sort of smile, immediately my voice changes. Like I have a kind of a more blah sound in my voice, and I just don't sound very exciting to talk to. And I could sit here and I could talk to you guys like that the whole time, but I'm like totally out of my nature, so it feels very uncomfortable. So I was like, break character. I can't. And scene. No, I can't do that. I know. I can't do that for long. But that's the thing, is like it's not only communicates to the listener on the phone or the person in front of you a sense of lightness and energy, but it also does it to you. Like it kind of amplifies how you interact with people. Like you start to kind of, your energy picks up, right? If I smile a little bit, all of a sudden I've got a little bit of dopamine hitting, which is like the chemical side of the smile. And your body gets a little bit energized and you kind of get a little bit of pick me up. And so it changes, I believe it translates even through the way that you interact with someone on the phone or in person. So I love that you brought that up. And we didn't really talk about that particular point. I mean, we have it on the thing, but we didn't talk about the actual breakdown of the point. So I'm so excited that you brought that up because such an important point.
Yeah, as somebody who, when I worked retail, I made a friend, me and this friend of mine, his name's Taylor. We would stand at the front desk, not front desk, the return desk, retail, together, and we would be, talking or whatever. And then a customer comes up, and I called it Disney princess mode because I use my hands a lot. So it's like, hi, welcome. How can I help you with your return today? And they would turn around and leave, and I would drop back into like, a lower tone, neutral face. Mm-hmm. And apparently I later became friends with his friends, and now we all like, hang out. But he went home to his girlfriend and was like, Maddie, it was insane. Like, I've never seen someone change personality in front of me, and it really freaked him out. So you don't want to do that to a customer or a client or a patient, because it will give the wrong impression. Yeah. Especially if, like, say, something else that happened to me, they turn around because they remember they have another question for you, and they watch you like drop your customer service personality, and they're like, oh, lizard people, what's going on? They get really freaked out. So if you're going to have a very drastic customer service personality, you have to maintain it.
Let it be yours. Like, it doesn't have to be, if you're not the like higher, like your smile doesn't come with a higher pitch, then there's no need to make it like more, oh my gosh, we're so excited
you don't need to be a cartoon. Like, that's just a me thing.
We're so excited you're here. Like, thanks for, you can be, match who you are. We're not trying to have you pretend like you're someone else, but let like the happier version of you come through, I guess is what we're trying to say. Like, if you were going to be like on vacation, relaxing with friends, and like there's this kind of happy version of you that evolves, that's the version that we would like to have you bring to the party at the front desk. So many good comments here. So, hey, Desiree, thanks for being here. Thanks for the wave. So I appreciate Todd's honest.
It works well. This is the problem with being the comment person, is I naturally drift to the comment section.
Yeah, I'm not the comment person, but I'm always just easily distracted. So there's that. Let's see. Having a smile does work. It does. Yes, having a smile with anything, even if it's just a very gentle, little lift of the corners of the mouth, it helps you. It's actually, there is actually a meditation, a healing practice. I can talk to some other place about this stuff. That is just centered around just sitting and smiling, because it does have a healing effect to your body, chemically speaking, and then outwardly, like you will feel better. You will probably behave in a different way than you would if you sat and pouted for a number of hours.
On top of that, because you are our next point, the curator of the patient experience, it helps to start it on a good note. You never want to answer the phone, an email, or greet someone in person with like, hi, how can I help you? Like, if you think of the worst drive-through fast food interaction you've ever had, they probably started with the most bored, annoyed. Like, if you feel like you're inconveniencing the worker doing their job.
This is hilarious. I was just having a conversation with someone. We were in a drive-through, and the recorded voice came on. I don't know if anybody's experienced that, where there's like a manager or something, or someone that records a good day, whatever, good morning, welcome to blah, 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 blah drive through. And then it's like, try our whatever special today. And then the person's like, what can I get you? Like, the next voice is like, what just happened? I don't,
whiplash.
Yeah. I was welcomed with this really cheerful person, and then angry man picked up the phone. So yeah, maybe just like being aware of the possible transitions to that they're experiencing, and trying not to be that for people, so I love it. Yeah. So the curating the patient experience, that ties into what Nicole was mentioning. It's simple things sometimes, right? It's making sure that there are pens available, making sure that the clipboards are in a place, or like things are on the clipboard, right? It's like basic stuff. Those are all kind of logistical things, but there's kind of a less direct way that you can add to the patient's experience, which is things that Nicole mentioned. Is like, is there a funky smell in your office that needs to be eliminated? Maybe.
Are all the plants dead, and it's kind of depressing in the waiting room? It's like all these dead plants.
What do we need to empty out of the waiting room that shouldn't be there? For example, magazines that are 4 years old. Like, really, is that necessary? I don't think so. Like, is there an unusual sounding like television sound that's just like, it's because it's broken or because there's like whatever it is that you can kind of like, I should probably change this weird little thing.
A mildly upsetting reality TV show or something.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think that's the worst. I was actually at a restaurant.
I mean, like, that's the thing. We can all immediately think of, like, I was in a public place where, my comfort is one of the things that I'm paying for, and this really unsettling thing happened. They had, like, a funky candle. There was, like, why is the music so loud? I'm not at a club. I'm at the dentist.
It was like the people in the kitchen were watching maybe a soccer game. This in Spanish, I can tell. and like they piped it through the whole restaurant. It was first of all complete silence for the first 15-20 minutes, and then jolting sounds of screaming came from the speakers, and then we're like, oh, that must be a mistake. They turned on the wrong speaker. No, it was not a mistake. They decided that they were going to leave said sound on the entire restaurant while we ate. And I was like, I think we should go outside. It's only 95 degrees, but I am so okay with sitting.
I'd rather
sweating than listening to this. Like, I couldn't see the TV too. It's like there's not even.
Can't even enjoy it.
Yeah, it's like what I'm just hearing the sounds of this. So those are all things that could go wrong, right? It's like you might enjoy. My girlfriend calls it trash TV. She does like trash TV Tuesdays or whatever. She gets like girlfriend gatherings. She's like, you might enjoy trash TV. You're just like, you're going to watch like, I don't even know a trash TV show, but that's how uncool I am. But you might want to watch your favorite trash TV show, but not everybody in your waiting area who might be coming in because of whatever they're dealing with and emotionally feeling unregulated. And here they are listening to your dramatic trash TV show, so like just being aware that even though your bosses may not have given you a responsibility of putting music on or keeping the music or not watching trash TV show, there are some weird things that I see happen in practices that are allowed where people, they're by themselves at the front desk. And so, they're listening to their favorite YouTube, whatever, and watching, watching whatever they want on their phone or like scrolling in through TikTok and, endlessly and everybody can hear it. And, no one's controlled it for the entire time they've been there. So they just stays. So I hope that. What'd you say?
I said, that's wild. Just the idea of walking in and like, because for us, obviously, vet, we were allowed like 3 different animal channels because that makes sense. But sometimes Animal Planet gets a little gruesome. So there were times where like, I think we have to change it. Like, that's intense.
Yeah. And depressing
think,
at certain points.
Right?
Like, you're here because like, yeah.
You're already here for maybe a bad reason, or you're already a little upset, and then it's like a really sad show, and you're like, maybe we should pick a different animal channel. But yeah, we were in charge of music. This is first of 2 streams. This is not boding well. We were in charge of music, and the only rule was that it had to be public appropriate, rated G, E for everyone.
I like it. At least you're giving you parameters.
No club music.
Yeah, no club music. I think it's important people give you parameters. I also think it's important that, when it comes to something like an office setting, if your bosses don't choose to like, curate any sort of playlist or whatever, like being really neutral around like what types of musical taste will support the environment, not just because you like this song or this, artist or whatever, right? Because, again, it's like there are some odd things that can trigger people. And so, maybe like neutral sounds and classical or, something that feels like just supportive for the environment. And I'll just kind of talk. So I had a very, unexpected visit to the vet, and Nicole has experience in the vet, so it's kind of funny. But she was bringing up the challenge of like being in an environment where you literally everything could kind of run the gamut of why people are there, right? It's like it may not be a surgery office, or you may not be dealing with an oncology office where you're getting for cancer treatment or something like that. It could be that you are taking your animal for a checkup, or you could be bringing your animal in because of something that has happened to them, right? Or, they're sick or what have you. And even just having like the attention to the fact that someone has shown up, they are in front of you, they are in whatever state they're in, whether it's, hey, I'm here for the checkup, little foo-foo needs a, bath or whatever. I don't know, like whatever your reason is for being there. Or, like frantic and I'm, upset and I don't know what's wrong with my kid or my animal or whatever. And so my four-legged kid, then, really trying to kind of be aware of the different kind of body language that will present itself, where you can immediately read that this person might need you to not put on your bubbly. It might be a different, like, hey, how's it going? Instead, it's like, oh, hi, how's everything? What can I do for you? Like it's a different, more attentive, more caring, more compassionate way of interacting. So it isn't always going to be a high energy, fiery thing. It's same thing with the environment. You may not put club music on because you're in a practice that is, people are coming in for potential, traumatic reasons. And so, being aware of the kind of music and environment and communication style that matches the reasons that they're coming in. So does that make sense, Nicole?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure it depends on kind of like location. Like I said, I had one that was in the city and then one that was kind of way out there. The in the city one, we had a curated office playlist because, lots of different types of clients and such. And so we had just kind of some indie folk kind of mix that was just, fine. It's typical kind of office music. Sometimes it comes on in public and I get freaked out, like background at the mall or something. You're like, oh, I'm in the office again. What's happening?
I'm singing. Why am I singing? Oh, I remember that song.
And then the more out there one, a lot of country because
really?
we're in the South. So a lot of that. But you made a really good point about the body language and everything, because if you kind of find yourself having a difficult time being like, are you mad right now? Are you sad right now? That probably isn't. Perhaps reception in person may not be the best place for you. Remote would be a little bit easier since it's like phone, email. You're more worried about the content of what they're saying and less so like the unintentional body language they're communicating. But you never want to greet someone with right out the gate enthusiasm as their mid-emergency. Almost nothing worse than having to try to scale that back. You never want to assume and kind of, you don't want them to feel burdened with your reactions to things, because you're here to help them. That's the whole point.
Right.
And to that point, another way to help people when they are in, not every appointment is going to be an easy medicine pickup or a simple checkup. No matter where you are, there are going to be less ideal circumstances. Staying educated on what your practice's services are, what their protocols are, that can go a long way with, you're kind of the hostess, if you will, like we said, curator of the experience. If you know what's going on, it's a lot easier to help people along that process as well. So we had surgeries. That was a pretty regular thing. If you didn't know how surgery stuff started, they would just not schedule you for those mornings, because it makes it so much more difficult for the owners, in our case, because vets. But if it was a child, it'd be so much more difficult for the parents having to like coach you. It's so much more difficult for the surgeons having to stop their prep to figure out what you messed up. Like, you are a very important part of the whole process, because you can either make things so much easier or so much more difficult.
That is true through and through as a receptionist. Really getting to know more intimately, not just the basics of like your functions, but how what you do has downstream impacts of what goes on in the back office, right? It's like, why do I need to capture said history or information about a patient, right? Why do I need to ask for certain information? And I'm just, because it's so fresh in my mind right now, situation was that, very recent, very, very, very recent, too recent. But I took my kitty in, and right away they had to ask all of the information that they needed, because they could send me back. The reception could send me back to the clinic and to see the provider. Yet if they don't know like basic stuff, like what's the vaccination record, what's the history, like what are the symptoms, like all of the other like the history, but also the relevant documentation that I might have access to, they should have that before they even come into the room. Otherwise, it stretches out the visit. It makes it way more stressful for me, because now I'm in the room as a patient having to communicate maybe again because I might have already told the receptionist this when I called, right? Which I did. Said all the things like, I'm coming in, I don't know what's going on, I'm gonna, it's the hospital. This particular, I went to 2 different places in the last week, but the last one was a hospital as well. So it's like, I have to like data dump all this stuff. Like, should I bring my animal to you? Like, yeah. I'm literally data dumping onto the receptionist all these things to ask the question of, should I bring my animal? And if they didn't know or have training about what is even possible in the hospital in the way of care, then it's going to mean that they're going to have to call someone from the clinical side to answer the question that could have been answered by the receptionist. So that's all from training,
To that point, though, never be afraid, especially if you're just starting this job, you just got, your offer, like we were saying, never be afraid to ask questions. Ideally, they should have a front-end manager wherever you are. That's kind of the liaison between you and the real medical side. But some places, depending on how small they are, you might have to run back and like, hey, is there a doctor not in a room right now? I have a quick question, because you are not, you work in medicine, in healthcare, but you are not a medical professional in that sense. You do not have that training. You are not to give advice, to diagnose anything beyond what you've been told in training that you're allowed to convey and what the doctors communicate for you to pass on. Because even if it sounds like, in people medicine, like it's just a fever, you probably just need to hold compress. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. You don't. TV shows are not accurate. And even if like we all have pets, if you're like a dedicated pet owner, you probably do have like, if your dog has been vomiting, one common solution, if they seem fine otherwise, is to feed them boiled plain rice. I cannot give that to you as a representative of a veterinary office because I am not a medical professional at that veterinary office. As a person on the internet, I can say that fine because I've also conveyed to you that I am not a professional and this is not veterinary advice.
And this is in the internet.
the same way that any lawyer you see on the internet starts almost everything they say with like, I am not your lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are not a doctor. You are not a nurse. You are not any, unless you are. And then congrats on the promotion. But in this specific situation, you can't, even if you have kids and you're pretty sure you know what's going on, even if the person before had the same exact situation, you can only convey what you've been told to for lawsuit reasons, for like just general, if you didn't know they had an underlying condition and gave them advice that caused them harm. Like there's so many possibilities, and it's a super important thing as a receptionist.
It protects you for sure. Like even if it's not just, professionally, like you could get in trouble, but how awful would you feel if something happened as a result of advice that you gave? And so just being protective of even yourself in the equation, to know that you are there as a support to the clinical staff that has all the training and knowledge. And so let's talk about that actually, because I don't think I've ever mentioned this in so we focus a lot in the business, we focus only in the business of healthcare, affectionately called in the bigger world, healthcare administration. If you are not familiar with it, anything that happens on the administrative side, which is the business side, the back end paperwork side of healthcare, right? The clinical teams are the people that are there for the primary purposes of patient care, right? So we aren't in the front desk Yes, there's an overlap very mildly into you are welcoming said patient in, but your function is still administrative, right? You are still, when I think of the word administrative, we're thinking more like paperwork oriented, right? You are still someone who is kind of moving the paperwork to make the clinical side happen. And so just so we understand, in case you are like brand spanking new to healthcare in the US and don't really understand when we talk about the clinical versus this administrative work, that, you know, you aren't, unless you are a practice where you yourself are the receptionist, and that does happen. There are some small practices that start like that, and you're providers doubling as a receptionist. In majority of cases, you are not the medical professional that is going to be providing patient care, and so it's so important to really get an understanding of your scope, right? So even if you feel like you know everything, you've been here for 5 years, you know it all, you've seen it all, right? Potentially. Still don't speak from that space, because every patient case has the possibility of being a uniquely different case. And you don't want to be that one, you know, who's like confidently, I've seen this 25 times in the last year, and so this is what I know will happen. Like, no, just as you didn't get the training, you don't need to put on that responsibility either. So that's good points, Nicole. Really good points.
Thank you. Yeah, and to the point of wanting to treat every case can be different, and you shouldn't make assumptions and all that. You also need to be prepared to learn new things, because everything's different. It's possible that, you know, one specific situation has never happened in that clinic before, so you don't have a protocol for that. And so you need to have, we've talked about this in every part, but an interest and commitment to learning, which we do here too, and we are committed to teaching you. But yeah, it's super, super important that, like, you know, you're prepared for if a new disease or something comes out in the field that you're working in, or, you know, with ecological changes, maybe now there's a new pest in the area, or onset of allergy. I mean, it could be anything that you kind of need to be prepared to change your, if you're a person of habit, this may not be the ideal situation for you, because medicine is a field that's constantly changing, whether it's new surgeries, new medicines, new diseases. Yeah, there's just so many things. And I'm sure Jasmine would love to talk about some methods to help you retain new information, actually.
Yeah. When it comes to like the on-the-job training, it varies, right? What they're going to give you, the format that it's going to come in is going to change. So you might be joining a practice that has all the bells and whistles of virtual training, and you're able to consume videos and take tests and quizzes to retain all of the information that you're about to implement. Maybe even this happens before your start date. Possible. But there are a lot of practices that have very minimal training available in an organized way that they're delivering to you. So you will likely be shadowing team members. You might be offered checklists and paperwork that will guide you along the path of how to do your job. But there's going to be a need for you to know your learning style and learn it and know it well. And so if you're someone who needs to see, visual learner, needs to see someone do the job, right? If you are given checklists or procedural guidelines and asked to learn that way, you need to advocate for yourself and say, I am so excited that I see this. I would really love to observe. Is that possible? You know, to observe someone else in this role so that I could learn in the best way that I learn personally. And so it's important to just observe the learning styles that you have felt very uncomfortable with in the past. So if you have gone to lectures and heard the lecture and struggled with retaining what comes into it, what do you need to help you feel supported? Is it recording it and playing it back a bunch of times? Is it taking notes, which I would suggest, in the way that you like to take notes? So challenge that people have that are not had not been students for a while, is learning how to properly notate and effectively, that in a way that supports you, that makes it useful. Because there are a lot of people that I'll see come in to do whatever courses, trainings, and they are narrators in their note taking, and they write sentences for themselves. And my question is always like, how often do you refer back to that? And, is it really useful? And another, to that same token, or that same note, it's like, are you someone who reads? If you don't read very often, it's like, for leisure, will you be reading for leisure or like for retention? Like, you need it to come in a way that is bulleted, or maybe more in like a mind map way, like somewhere where you can kind of give yourselves a quick reference to the information when it's needed. And don't feel afraid when someone has sat you down for a really long training. That can happen, right? You could be there observing for 3 hours and you're just like, oh my gosh, my brain is exploding. Like, ask them, hey, can I take the next 30 minutes to an hour, whatever it is, to organize my notes and just to see if I have questions? And take all that mumbo jumbo that you just wrote down or recorded or whatever, and rewrite it and organize it for yourself. I see so often that they blame the organization for not providing them with adequate whatever. You can't change you can't at this level change the intrinsic nature of an organization by saying, I'm going to need you guys to send me an SOP, please, a standard operating procedure and a checklist prior to my start date. Like, you're not going to make that change, but you're not going to be able to make that demand of them. But what you could do is give yourself that, right? Like, if they didn't give you a step-by-step procedure for a set function, but you just sat down for 3 hours and now have the opportunity to make yourself a step-by-step procedure, then do that for yourself. Like, otherwise you're going to feel all of the stress and disorder that has persisted in that organization impact you and your performance and your potential. So do you have something you want to add to that, Nicole?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't have flashy videos when I worked at the vet. Like I said, 2 different practices basically. They had different clientele. They had different like front end processing programs when I started. And I was technically working front and back. So I had like 4 jobs at once. I was a little overwhelmed. They gave me a giant like 3-ring like massive binder just full of all of the different diseases and pests and procedures, and then the front end protocols. I showed Jasmine some of my front end notes for this series, and she was like, that's a lot. I was like, this is only the first half. The other half just doesn't apply here because none of us are working on animals. And yeah, so they were like, here's this. I got to work with a manager on each end. I had to take a whole quiz to like, and I say quiz, it was like 3 pages per position, like test to qualify to work on my own. I'm glad they were thorough. It's an important job. However, it was a lot and it was pretty overwhelming. So I literally got I think Jasmine's made fun of me for this before. Basically, those little books that professional golfers, you keep their scores on? So I got one of those because it fits perfectly in a scrub pocket. It's water-resistant pages. I'd recommend highly. Like, if I have a second to look it up, I will happily do it because it's amazing. It was a life changer. It won't smear the ink because it's made to work, out in the weather and stuff. And so front side was all of the reception notes, and then the back side, like the backs of the pages, were for the back end stuff because that made sense for my brain. And the pro of it being tiny is Jasmine and I can be a little wordy. I had to be limited to what I could fit on a page, So just like what Jasmine was saying with like, you need to know if you're going to write full sentences or you need to abbreviate things. Also make sure it makes sense when you look at it later, because I would go home and I'd look over my notes because you don't always have time in the middle of the day to be like, hold on, let me write that down. Oh, yeah. I would ask for it sometimes, and I did get made fun of at work, but I had to give my notes all the time to people who were there longer than me, where they're like, oh crap, Nicole, do you know how to do that one test that we do once every 6 months? It's like, of course I do, right here. People will make fun of you for being the nerd, but being the nerd pays off.
I love
And
being
so,
the nerd.
yeah, make sure your notes make sense when you look back at it, because if you abbreviate everything and then no word is more than 4 letters, sometimes it gets a little unclear.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like I used to, my aunt was a stenographer. And I used
Oh,
to go with her to court sometimes. A court reporter is a thing. It's a person in court that types. They actually do not type. They type in like a shorthand language. And I don't remember if there's like a separate name for it, but basically it's an art form. You learn the language and you write in that way. And for like years I tried really hard to kind of like, just like, if like what could it be if I actually could learn? They have their own machine. It's a stenography machine. It's a machine that it looks like a typewriter. It is missing a lot of letters. And so it's pretty cool, but you may not have that gift of learning something like that. You might not have the gift of being able to give yourself a shorthand, but you definitely have the opportunity to give yourself the gift of time to reorganize your thoughts. And just to Nicole's point of, you walk away from the day, you look back at your notes and you're like, you're missing like important words because it's fresh in your mind, you can make sense of it in that moment. That
you
happens.
want to fix it before it's been 3 months and somebody asks you to do that one test and you're
Oh,
like, oh, I didn't write down the color of the lid. Is this
yeah.
a red test tube or a blue test tube kind of thing?
Yeah, totally. When I do site visits and site evaluations and revenue cycle audits for people, and the biggest thing for me is like, there's a process of like discernment of like, there's stuff that people tell you. This happens in training for you guys, that people tell you that you don't realize until you're reviewing your notes, that that's probably completely irrelevant, like to this whole process. And you're like, like I'll sit down and I'll be like shadowing someone's role to understand what takes place in a particular area of the practice, and just trying to understand what the flow is, what their process is, what they enjoy about it or what they don't like about it. And sometimes that comes through just in the way that they talk. And so it's important to like pull away and say, like, let me look at the notes. Let me really get a sense truly of how you work this process. And then what are the things that like you didn't tell me was a step, but that was a step, like that happens all the time.
The worst type of manager is the one who assumes that like you are actually like recording with your mind. And they're like, so that's how you do it. And you're like, I didn't even see what buttons you pressed. You didn't tell me, like, oh man, the first time I had to learn to use a fax machine, because we're talking about reception, I was scared of this hulking thing that's bigger than the printer. It's got a phone. Why does it have a phone if I can't make calls on it? And it screams all the time. And yeah, the person who showed me was like, older than me. And so she'd clearly grew up with them. And she was like, so that's how they work. And I was like, so what was that first button and why do I press it? And what happens if I mess up and have to start over? And she was like, oh, you've never seen one before. And I was like, I have never seen a fax machine before. Like some people just assume, especially we've talked about some practices are like all paper. So if you've never used a fax machine, or if you've only used a fax machine and now you have to learn like the online portal, and you're like, so you just upload and you click save and and you're like, how do I work the menu? Where did you go?
What are you clicking on? You have one of these things, and I've used a laptop only.
In some places the reception runs off iPads, and if you are not an iPad person, I have iPhone, but I don't use an iPad. So it was an entire different, like, they're similar enough. I grew up on computers, but I'm a Windows PC kind of girl. So we're working on Apple iPads. You're like, I'm so
you go
lost.
back. Where's the back arrow? Like, it's me. I know. I'm learning the Apple environment, but that's totally me for sure. Like, it's foreign. I'm like, what?
Macs are not iPhones. They work completely differently.
Totally. And I've like, even just the menu being in a different place and like all of it. Like, why? What? Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn. You have to be adaptable to when, you know, maybe some hotshot manager comes in and upgrades everything to Macs, and you're like, why?
Yeah.
Why would you do this to us? But now
True.
you're a Mac office and you have to figure it out.
Yeah,
But
I love it. Adaptability is so important. You mentioned that earlier, and just being really flexible and, you know, allowing that flexibility to kind of guide your day to day, even though you might have done the perfect job learning the role, and you felt like you were proficient, and then now they've overhauled and done something different because it changes, because of, like, you know, I mean, we just came out of a season where it was just like dramatic changes very quickly with the pandemic, like just completely dramatic, and like some stuff that people are like, we're trying it, we don't know if it's gonna work, but we bought this thing and we're supposed to have it. So, oh my gosh, I love this comment so much, Blue Butterfly. Like, I have to immediately, yes to this is the worst thing. And there are so many people that, like, they live post-its. Like, it's like that's the standard operating procedure, is like, just put post-it on it with the step. And it doesn't even have steps. Sometimes it'll be just like random things. Like I actually, the very first practice that I was the practice administrator for, in 2 locations, and the provider, there actually were 2 owners. The one main provider owner, she had an obsession with post-its, and I think I like became anti post-its for a little while as a result of it. I have an appreciation for it for important things that, like, are quick reference, but I'm also a person who's like, because of the trauma of her post-it world, I'm like, if you've post-its, I'm taking all your post-its down and we're typing this sucker up. Like, like, if it's a process, can we please put like 3 steps in type instead of in your jacked up handwriting?
I think as a sort of digital hoarder, and as somebody who, if I can't see something, it doesn't exist. This is where Jasmine and I differ. I'm literally taking notes for things I want to put down later during the stream right now, on note cards, because I don't have any sticky notes right now and I need to get more. I have been compiling notes into a different notebook because if I put it in a Google Doc, it disappears. It now belongs to the cloud. Google owns it now.
I agree with that. And this is where, like, you've got,
I'm with Blue Butterfly.
Yeah, you're the bullet notebook person now too. Like, here's my issue with the post-its. Is my favorite thing about post-its is that it can go into the garbage. My least favorite thing about people using post-its is that it can go into any other place that is not the garbage, and it's an important note. And so I'm always like, I'm a proponent of a post-it note when it's an impermanent thing, right? It's like, I just want to remind myself of this really important thing for the next few days. And then I want it to go away because I don't want to look at it. And that to me makes sense when it comes to like the post-it notes being the guide permanently. I'm always like, did you not think that the sticky on the back of the note was eventually going to wear off? Like,
I can agree with that. I wouldn't use sticky notes for like login every day, super important kind of information. Yeah. But for me, somebody who's terrible with habits, it's a good, like, we have a newsletter, and I'll probably post the link here in a moment if you'd like to sign up. And I constantly, for the first like 3 weeks we were doing it, would forget to check the mobile view, right? So then I would send it, and then I would open it on my mobile phone, and I would see that none of the links were correct with like the right images, and the text would be like askew, and I'd be like, why? Why did I forget the mobile view? I'm the person who uses mobile view. So I had a sticky note, and until the sticky came off, it was like screaming at me, the computer, check mobile view. So by the time it disappeared, I can still see where it goes. I'm gesturing right where it was sticky because I can see it in my brain. But I think a happy medium is with the vet binder full of notes. It was all black and white. I mean, I'm not going to criticize that they didn't use color, but that just, it's so monotonous. It's like worse than a textbook because all the images are black and white too. So I would take sticky notes, and I had them color coded of like, you know, important for both jobs at both locations, one job at one location, etc. And I would use it to like add addendums basically of like, oh, remember this policy with that rule, or this procedure with that policy, or whatever. And so it's pressed in the book like a pretty little flower. And then when I'm opening through, it's like, what was that one thing? It's like, right. And it comes with a note. So I think we can agree on that one.
Yeah, I agree. And so I love that Blue Butterfly brought that up, because it's a supportive thing. When it's done wrong, it's not as supportive, but I totally hear it. And then a spiral of notes. Love it. So good. It's so good. And as long as you're referencing the notes, my other favorite thing about Post-its is like, it can help you organize. Like, so, we obviously have like page markers that you could get, but sometimes a Post-it note is helpful because you can write more things on your like use it as a page marker and have that be the thing that you use to remind yourself about really important things that you need to refer back to on a regular basis, and have an opportunity to write more stuff on your little page tab. So yeah. And I like to do different Post-it note colors for stuff like that too. So like, things that are non-urgent, or things that are, important reminders, but, not like daily task oriented, like maybe using different colors for different things is helpful. So, you want to talk about what she just put in there?
Our newsletter?
Yeah. Oh, the newsletter? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just, because I mentioned offhand of like, oh yeah, by the way, since I'm bringing it up, I was like, I'll look it up in a second, because I'm talking. If I talk while I'm trying to look at something, I can't do both, and I just start reading my notes, which would be really bad since it's just a list of links, and no one wants to hear that.
I was thinking about related to that. We're actually about to record a really important update for you guys that we're going to start doing on a monthly basis, just to give you guys a what's going on update. So if you are not already subscribed, I forgot the word I was going to say. I was like, what is the goal? If you're not subscribed, go ahead and get subscribed now, because our content is shifting up quite a bit. Pretty excited about like the consistency, and also the visibility that we're getting. We have a lot of background or back end updates happening to our websites and other things out there. So you're going to see a lot of changes in how we communicate more effectively. And so if you want to know more about that and what's been going on, or what will be coming down the pike here to support you in your journey, then go ahead and get added onto that newsletter. And yeah, like Nicole just put the see more of what we do as well. There's a lot of information on that links page, and that's spelled correctly, links.co. And then we also have the option for you to support the channel by becoming a member. When you're a member on the channel, you get something that like we're doing in about an hour and 20 minutes. We have our channel member live at 4:30 p.m. today. Our members get access to a member only section of YouTube that has the recordings, that has different access to resources, different things like discounts for courses that are exclusive for members. So there is a running sale right now for everyone, which Nicole put on early. Yep, there it is, summer sale for everyone, but members get a higher discount.
Super secret, special, single course sale every month. Every month, members get one specific course that no one else gets. And they get their special live stream that's coming up here soon. And we also post special resources like I was going to go ahead and look through something that changed my life when I was in school. Was I had a history teacher, sit down and teach us how to do outlines properly. And it changed my note-taking process forever. So since we were talking about that today, I was going to dig up the blog thing that she'd shared with us and share it with our members so that they can also learn how to properly take notes without writing novels or using text speech.
So good. I love that. I'm all about like little tools like that and learning how to become more effective at something that can impact all things. Like you could literally be planning a family party and use something like an outline for your notes that could help you. So it doesn't have, or family vacation or whatever, like it doesn't have to be because of a job. So these are all skills that are translatable in all areas of your life. I talk to people about this all the time. They're like, oh, should I get project management training? Should I get it? So you don't have to get a certification. You could totally learn because everything is a project. I want to know how to clean my house, a deep cleaning, and I haven't cleaned it in like years. Like there's
everything is a skill. Like people have a lot of judgment if you're like, I don't really know how to cook. I'm bad at cleaning. And it's like, well, just figure it out. it's a skill. You have to learn it. Otherwise, you can do dangerous things like set your house on fire or make mustard gas while cleaning a bathroom. Not from personal experience at all. Like, you note taking everything, talking to people on the phone. So it brings us to our last point, actually, perfectly. You're not alone. You have in the front desk thing, coworkers, managers, support. You know, if you're really struggling with things, there's online spaces. If you're in any customer facing position you can think of, there's usually one online community minimum of people who are like, I'm gonna lose my mind if somebody comes through the drive-through and then takes 20 minutes to figure out how to order a water, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's something for everybody. But then you also have other online resources like us, like other places, to support you there. So you're not alone. And the last thing that I think we really have to say about reception, at least, is I found this quote in one of my not notes, the lesson stuff that I was given, the training materials, that's what it was, where it said, be forgiving and forgiving. And I really liked that for reception work, where, you know, you need to be giving towards the clients, the patients. That's like why you're here. You're basically being a hostess, the curator, all the fun terms that we came up with here today. But you also need to be forgiving because, as I think it was Blue Butterfly said earlier, you never know what the person next to you is going through, and whether that's, you know, your manager, your coworker, the people coming in and out of the practice, even yourself. You could be the one having the bad day, and you have to come to work and deal with other people's problems, and, you know, they're not here for you, unfortunately. But yeah, as reception, it's a very people focused job. There's a lot to consider, and you need to be considerate in kind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you guys will notice, you know, we didn't talk all the specific tasks that you're going to be doing. What we talked about were the things that really are the skills that are really going to help you be able to understand how to embody whatever is asked of you, right? The things that we talked about today are really in our opinions, for sure, the most important things and skills that you can start to hone in on as you're starting in this journey, because it's going to impact whatever you're going to learn, whatever new challenge, whatever new process that they're throwing at you. You're going to be able to use the things we chatted about today to help you along the way. So yeah, I felt like that was pretty complete. How did you feel, Nicole? Any other last things? I was looking at our...
we actually hit all of them. I know previously we said that this might be a 4-part series. I think the only thing that we didn't get to for once was Jasmine at one point was considering talking about software training. So not to put her on the spot here, that may come in July. We'll talk about it. But yeah. Otherwise, are there any other positions that you guys want to talk about the process of getting hired and getting the job? Now what? And obviously we have medical billing content all over the channel, everywhere. Just like start clicking, you'll find it. But, besides reception, is there anything else? Would you want to know a little bit about coding? Or I know there's different specialist positions Jasmine's talked about kind of here and there. Mm-hmm. What are you guys interested in?
Yeah, I would love to, if there's maybe Q&A related to this, questions that you guys have that you want us to answer more specifically, that you're faced with at the moment, even if it's like examples, I'm happy to go over those with you. And we actually have now a new link that we have for career support. What is that called? I think it's career mini coaching or something like that is the link.
Me on the spot.
No, sorry. Yeah, I think it's career mini coaching. That link will get you an opportunity to hop on a call. And is that
that's the one you sent me. So if that's wrong, then
yeah, I think that's right. I just was saying, what is the 99? Yeah, that's not. It is. I think. I don't remember the amount. It is for a fee. It's not 99. But yeah, I was like, what is that? But no, maybe that just got left in the links or whatever. Like it saved it. It's all good. But yeah, so that particular link will get you on a call with me, and I can do things like dive through your resume and go over some things. If you have questions though, and if we have some last things that we want to cover, we'll talk about what the fourth part could look like. And we'd love to maybe answer questions during that fourth part. I think that would be a last opportunity to unpack anything that you guys have related to this. But if you really want more more handheld opportunity and be a bit more supported on a one-on-one, using that career mini coaching is going to help you. And there's all kinds of things that we could do during that call. It could be that you've already sent resumes out. You could, be trying to figure out what an effective way to apply would be. You might be trying to decide if a particular position is one that you would qualify for. It might be something more broad where you're like, I don't know even where to begin, and I would like to get your advice, your help. So my friends who are international, I know we get a lot of folks from other countries that have questions. Most reception positions are reception positions that are served from the US. I don't know enough about job career search internationally to help you. So I'm not saying that you can't book a call with me. What I'm saying is I want to make sure that it's worth your time. And so I wouldn't necessarily be able to call myself an expert in international job searching. And so just be aware of that if you are watching and not sure whether I could help. I'm happy to help you prepare resumes if you're applying for US-based companies and things like that. But once again, I'm not quite sure that I'd be able to support you with confidence, we'll say. So yeah, cool. Well, with that said, we are back on at 4:30, correct?
But only for YouTube members. So if you have not gotten your fill of Nicole and Jasmine yet today, become a member and see us in an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah. And on that note, you can join the membership at any point and have access to those videos. And so if you can't get back on or stay on live for today, they're stored just like these lives are on the the YouTube, on their website, YouTube site, and you can watch the videos from there. So
yes, all our live streams are available for replay. So this will be number 4, I think. So you've got a whole month. No, it's once a month, not once a week. We've got 4 months worth of live streams thus far.
Blue butterfly.
Oh.
That's really sweet of you. Yeah, my baby girl we had to say goodbye to her. She's not with us anymore. So I appreciate you for saying that. It's very fresh for me, so I apologize for getting a little emotional, but thank you for that. I appreciate you very much. And thank you to our channel members here on YouTube. They're scrolling at the bottom. Nicole, I'm going to let you talk for a second while I catch up.
No problem. Yes, thank you to our channel members, of course. Hopefully we'll be seeing some of you here shortly. You're all scrolling at the bottom. You're all lovely, but it's going too fast for me to read all of you, so that's not fair. But hi to our latest addition, Michelle. And yeah, you can join anytime. We have 2 different tiers. We talked about a lot of the perks here already, including some of those freebies like how to outline. That'll be coming from me sometime today or tomorrow. And yeah, thank you all so much, members or not, for joining us on this little series. And we'd love to see what else that you'd like for us to talk about.
Thank you, guys. And we'll see you all, channel members, at 4:30. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for hanging out with us.